The next session we have is How is AI Shaping Future of Healthcare? The speaker is Jeffrey Eyestone. Jeff is Cognitive Scale's Healthcare AI Advisor. In this role, Jeff works with healthcare organizations, primarily providers, healthcare systems, and payers on their AI journey, from strategic insight into how to develop AI competencies and centers of excellence to more technical development of AI roadmaps and delivery of AI solutions. I'm excited about this next session. Over to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Rahul. Appreciate it. And thanks to Intel and Tech Mahindra for having us today. Looking forward to digging into how AI is transforming healthcare. I do, like Rahul said, work with some of the larger healthcare systems in the country, like Ascension, health insurance companies, or payers like Anthem, on their AI-first strategy and roadmap, their solutions, all the way to the platform for how they deploy, orchestrate, operationalize these solutions. I have the luxury later in the agenda here of following all these great speakers, but the challenge of trying to be additive here. So I want to touch on a bit about how we at Cognitive Scale see AI, what we're doing in healthcare to augment the intelligence of healthcare workers, so many knowledge workers, and really dig into topics like what is cognitive computing doing in this space, what are we doing with process optimization and that sort of thing, and how are we leveraging really the whole stack you see here of AI solutions, from analytics to ML, machine learning, process automation, up into cognitive applications of the type that we're building out. So, in healthcare, the other presenters have talked about all sorts of awesome use cases. It's just been great for me to learn about what's going on in other industries. But healthcare, obviously, you have clinical and medical applications that I'll dig into. Really amazing use cases and transformative in terms of diagnosis and care use cases in the space. At Cognitive Scale, what we're really focused on as well, you heard from other presenters about things like hyper-personalization, customer 360. In healthcare, that means members, patients, customers, what kind of insights can we derive there? And then obviously lots of process optimization use cases specific to healthcare, EDI, claims, revenue cycle, obviously care management. We've heard quite a bit about conversational AI and use cases there. And lastly, in healthcare, it's such a massive data challenge with disparate systems, EMRs, ERPs, member data, patient data, external data sources now, that sort of thing, that just trying to use AI to find signals or triggers in that data, in transactional data, or across distributed networks of disparate systems. There are plenty of AI use cases in there. And then lastly, at Cognitive Scale, we talk a lot about trusted and ethical AI. Huge topic area in healthcare around everything from data ownership to privacy use cases, HIPAA compliance, obviously, but then even data traceability. Where is data going? Who has access to that with PHI radars and such? And then even into those trusted and ethical AI use cases. So I'll touch on that a bit as well. And like I mentioned, I work with clients in an advisory capacity on everything from their roadmap and AI-first strategy. So how are these solutions delivered? But down to that, you've heard quite a bit about how solutions are deployed. Our Cortex platform enables building, orchestrating multiple solutions. So I want to touch on quite a bit about that. Then how do you prioritize valuable, replicable, scalable solutions in healthcare, given especially that there are so many challenges with just seeing a person, say, as a patient, a member, and a customer, pulling all the different data that it takes. So what I want to do is start with, this is an article from the New York Times. It's a great article just over a month ago about AI took a test to detect lung cancer, it got an A. It starts out right at the beginning with talking about how these medical clinical use cases, pathology, radiology, obviously being able to look at an image with millions of pixels much earlier perhaps in the process of diagnosing things like lung cancer in this case. Interpreting images with the same skills that humans use is what this article starts out with. To us, that's cognitive, right? That's like a digital brain. I want to drill into what does that really mean and how is it transforming healthcare. The article goes on to mention feeding huge amounts of data into artificial neural networks, into algorithms, rule sets, et cetera. And that's an important point because AI solutions in healthcare are often really aggregated bits of technology, multiple AI solutions that you've heard a lot about today from previous presenters. Even just getting the data all in one place can take AI, machine learning of paper or processing unstructured nurse notes, that kind of thing. But even in this case with radiology and pathology use cases, you then, of course, want to tie these insights into the rest of the patient record, maybe add some member data, some longitudinal patient data. So it's an important consideration to realize healthcare AI is often multiple solutions. We call it orchestrated when they're put together to deliver the kind of insights this article's mentioning. And then it closes right at the beginning with this solution learns as it goes. The more data it receives, the better it becomes at interpretation. So we've heard a lot about training data, model improvement over time, even model degradation going out in years. All true, of course. But that point is very important, the whole learning aspect. At cognitive scale, we talk about the dial loop. And in healthcare, it's particularly relevant when you have from data to insight, say in that lung cancer detection example, to be able to better detect and offer up those insights at millions of pixels of granularity with all sorts of intelligence to augment the pathologist's work, the oncologist, other clinicians. But then they take action. So the output of some AI solutions in healthcare will be next best action, or at least in the case of a clinician or that kind of knowledge worker, to highlight considerations for next steps. But then that feedback loop, once you know the results of those actions, the model starts to learn. It improves its accuracy, for example. It improves risk scores and those sorts of things. So again, the dial loop at cognitive scale, data to insights to action to learning, continuous feedback is just getting more and more prevalent. So when we look at, on the right of this slide here, the kind of questions in healthcare that you can imagine in everything from patient interactions to customer interactions or member interactions, what happened off of all these massive disparate sources of data, what insights can I derive from descriptive, observed attributes here up through what does that mean, the diagnostic application, to what could happen next, predictive. By the time you get into prescriptive applications, what's that next best action, best course of action, and even deductive reasoning around workflow improvement, what we'd call cognitive process improvement. You're really leveraging the dial loop, especially, getting to where those insights lead to actions and then lots of learning. And so, again, referencing that New York Times article that pointed to one very specific lung detection use case, it mentioned neural nets, algorithms, rule sets. It's likely multiples of each of those to help get to a high quality result, a recommendation about lung cancer detection. The article says it got an A on that test. But at cognitive scale, what we're helping then do is to deploy that into a clinical environment, even to marry it to a much broader AI solution set, like that insights about that specific patient, well beyond just that scan. And that we call an anatomy of an AI, everything from the data connectivity, like your EMR as an output source of data, or maybe a lab information system as the consuming source of that data, up through all those component parts of the AI solution itself. The again, algorithms, rule sets up into models. Many of times the model in a complex case like that is actually several models, or even dozens of models. So again, anatomy of an AI is then everything it takes to actually deploy and manage, maintain that model over time. And again, don't forget about all the attributes of an AI solution, like trusted and ethical AI, compliance and controls, data traceability, PHI, and all that. Big, important consideration there. So digging in further on some of the key healthcare AI use cases, we've heard quite a bit about hyper-personalization. You might call it customer 360. In healthcare, it's, we always say healthcare is really unique. But, that same person in front of you is oftentimes multiple personas: a patient, a member, a customer. Nowadays, maybe they're shopping you, they're a consumer, they haven't bought anything yet, so you don't have a customer account. They may be an employee on a self-insured employer plan, in a group plan, and working through a broker. So they have all sorts of personas, and the friction comes across those personas. Clinicians may deal with patients well, but when it comes to billing as a member and they need benefit information, all sorts of challenges ensue. So, we call it Profile of One at cognitive scale, trying to help build out a golden record, if you will, a single point of truth on a person. But it's not a healthcare system integration challenge. Again, think that dial loop. Once you get all this data here, just doing that can take AI, ML, et cetera, and I'll touch on a couple of those use cases in a minute. But once you get all the data there, what are you then doing? What insights are you deriving via models? It could be everything from sales support to, as in, matching patients to plans based on utilization and prescription history, to care management or wellness solutions matching, those sorts of things, where specifically you're looking across these disparate data sources. A lot going on in the personalization space in healthcare. So, again, at cognitive scale, this isn't necessarily healthcare specific, but when I say, we're pulling all this data together for the sake of everything from sales and marketing to intake, revenue cycle, clinicians, those insights deriving from observed data, inferred insights, we again apply that dial loop to try to learn, and then with our solution, Cortex, to enable all sorts of processes to run off of a member profile. So other use cases where we talk about cognitive process improvement, I mentioned things like just getting all the data in one place. For example, in healthcare, that picture on the upper right is an old school paper claim. But getting claim data, benefit data, customer data all in one place for this sort of analysis can leverage machine learning, perhaps. And even there's a hierarchy from document intake and conversion to insights like, what is in this claim? What type of claim is it? Is it urgent? Do I have to act on it in a certain amount of time? To then obviously applying AI models to derive all the insights, say, from claim data, whether it's clinical, financial, administrative, or some combination above. So again, at cognitive scale, we're talking about augmenting process intelligence. We call that amplify. lots of use cases in healthcare, next best action, document insights, and that kind of thing. And I'll touch on a few more here. Like, we do a lot of work with our larger healthcare system clients and our payer clients to really map out a process, like in this example, claim processing in the revenue cycle, into subcomponents and then numerous AI-powered processes within that. I mentioned, documents. On the provider side, it might be for denials management, help us capture more revenue, insights into why do claims get rejected or take a long time to pay, short pay, et cetera, to things like on the payer side, auto adjudication, help us automate and electronify at much higher rates with better quality in terms of how we're paying, to even topics like payment integrity, fraud detection, and that sort of thing. And then for both payers and providers, remittances, payments, those sort of things. The point being, usually across a process like this, there are numerous AI use cases that are really transforming what's going on across this industry. Just, again, in one specific transaction set, a claim. And then obviously as well, you have now in that data, when I mentioned earlier the anatomy of an AI, if I'm able to receive claim data longitudinally for a patient from hospital, physician, lab, radiology, et cetera, pharmacy, and then derive insights off that, I can extend from, say, a financial use case like denials management or improved revenue collection, improved auto adjudication, to lots of clinical applications. That's where you'd have AI use cases like surveillance, you might call it. I don't mean spying, but things like where are there triggers or signals in data that show, this patient may be a good match for a wellness program, or another patient now has several denials due to a high deductible. How do you serve them better in a customer service setting? By monitoring those transactions as they move across your system. The point being, this generates a lot more AI use cases. And we do a lot of this work where, again, just mapping out these processes down to, what is your AI first strategy, roadmap, best few, most valuable, replicable, scalable, into an actual plan for your AI strategy. And so, almost by way of summary here, I've touched on, there are clinical and medical use cases we read about in the news every day, practically, like that New York Times article. But we at Cognitive Scale are especially focused across the board on a number of others. And like the other industry presenters you've heard today, things like hyper-personalization around those people with that unique attribute in healthcare of people have multiple personas. So that in itself creates some unique healthcare use cases, to then, the underlying processes in healthcare that are so unique, like claims, revenue cycle, the specific types of documents. I mentioned signals, triggers, surveillance solutions. You heard a fair bit about conversational AI being able to, say, understand healthcare specific drug codes or claim identifiers and account numbers. And lastly, that control piece. There's clearly a need in healthcare to manage to HIPAA compliance, privacy, security of data, and all of those. But then when you look across a huge healthcare system, for example, how do they explain their AI solutions and models in a trusted and ethical way? So at Cognitive Scale, again, we've got a platform that manages all of the above. We can enable multiple AI technologies, and then we help our clients, again, with that practical, scalable deployment of solutions that really looks to a quantifiable business value to manage out some of the biggest challenges in healthcare. So with that, I'd point you to our website. At Cognitive Scale, you can learn plenty more. We have some good case studies in healthcare and then the other industries we serve. Obviously, you'd learn about our blue chip client base, some more about our investors like Intel, partners like Tech Mahindra, and some of the other things we're doing. And I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's amazing to see the breadth of use cases within the healthcare industry. But you also touched upon some of the very important aspects in AI, and which is very, very critical is what I think. Things around the ethical AI and ensuring that the bias is limited, and if possible taken out, in building the AI models. Thank you so much again.